Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and you are welcome to the Shabbat of this morning. We glorify the name of the Lord, our God, for the opportunity that He has given us to behold and to see this beautiful day in the land of the living. Though it's raining outside, still yet we give glory to the Lord. You see, the Russians always say that there is no bad weather. All weather is according to what God has commanded them. The snow, the rain, the summer, the spring, everything. So it's a circle. So everything goes round and round. So we thank God for this great day. The parasha of this morning is known as Parshas Tzav. The parasha of this morning is known as Parshas Tzav, and it means to command, commandment, to command. And I subtitle it, keep your vulnerable part from corruption. To keep our vulnerable part from corruption. Why did I say so? Or why did I subtitle it that way? Because the most vulnerable part of our body are the most corruptible. The most vulnerable part of our body, that part of our body that we don't even care for. That part of our body, right, that we don't even look at. That part of our body that we don't even exalt. Those parts are the most corruptible. Those parts are the most part that can lead us into the path of destruction, into the path of death. Right? So that is why I'm saying we have to keep this part, this vulnerable part, we have to keep them from corruption, because this part of our body, they speedily lead us into the path of unrighteousness. And so we have to take absolute control of this part of our body. And I'm going to give us those parts during the parasha. Then he brought near the second ram, and the inauguration ram, and Aaron and his sons laid their hand upon the head of the ram. He slaughtered it, and Moshe Rabbeinu took some of his blood and placed it upon the middle part of the ear, the middle part of Aaron's right ear, upon the thumb of the right hand, and upon the big toe of their right foot. That is Leviticus chapter 8, verse 22 to 24. The Torah is filled with all ceremonies, especially in the book of Vayikra, in the book of Leviticus. One of the oddest, at least to the Western mind, is the one described on the day of the ordination of Aaron and his sons. The ram of ordination is sacrificed, and his blood smeared on the high priest's right earlobe, right thumb, and right big toe. What is the meaning of this? What is Torah trying to teach us with this? And why did Moshe Rabbeinu, smear the blood of the ram in the middle part of his ear, the right thumb, and the big toe of his right feet? Why is this? And what is the message that Torah is prostrating to us, their descendants, today? What is Torah want us to understand by these symbols, or by this symbolism? We need to understand that to the Western mind, this is a kind of, oh my God, what is going on here? Why are they sprinkling blood? But we need to understand too that in those days, before, in those days, even though back in Europe, in those days, right, some 2,000, 4,000 years ago, they do the same thing. That is a kind of a religion. It's a universal, it's a worldwide kind of things that what the symbolism of blood. There is abundant evidence that dabbling the blood of a sacrifice on something to give it a different status was a common Near Eastern practice, and I will say not only that, all over the world, in the east, in the north, in the south, and in the west. It's a kind of a universal practice. The best known will be the use of the blood of the Pesach sacrifice on the doorpost on the evening that the Israelites were to leave Egypt, so as to protect the inhabitants from the danger of death. But other civilization and culture of the ancient world used to do the same thing. In such culture, they smeared vulnerable parts of an object to protect it from the outside forces. You see, in Egypt, it has been practiced thousands of years. In Mesopotamia, it has been practiced thousands of years. So we understand, we know and we understand why they practice this. This is to do what, in their own understanding, in their own worldview, it is to protect. It is or to sanctify an object. Or if it is a human being or a house, it is to protect the house from a negative energy or from a negative the negative forces. So this is the purpose, and this is why they use this ritual, to sanctify or to protect. And one of the most significant one that we know about is the one that I just said during the Pesach festival, right? We know that, and the Lord commanded Moshe that he should command the children of Israel to do what? To take a lamb and kill it, right? And put the blood on their doorpost, on the lantern of the house, that when the angel of death will pass, the angel of death will see the blood and pass over them. And that is why they call this Passover, Pesach. So this is one of the most significant one that we can see in the Torah, and we have a lot of them like that in the Torah. So what is the Torah telling us? What is the Torah teaching us concerning Aharon the Kohen Gadol and his son concerning their sanctification during their ordination as Kohen and Kohanim? Sometimes it will be a corner of a house or a doorpost. Sometimes it will be the corner of an altar. And in some case, the outside edge, the corner, and all the vulnerable places will be covered with the blood of the sacrifice to protect that particular object. This apotropaic protection will guard against negative forces, as I just said, and will keep the object very pure. So when Moshe Rabbeinu dubbed Aharon and his sons, he was doing essentially the same thing, no different. Midrashically, Moshe was keeping them very pure to keep the negative energy of corruption and hubris. What does the meaning of the word hubris? That is corruption. That is the kind of excessive pride, or a kind of self-confidence. It's trying to keep a kind of pride. It's trying to keep that far away from them. His choice of ceremony made a lasting impression upon the new priest and upon the people that are looking and seeing what is going on. So this is what I'm saying, that when they kill the sacrifice, the blood is being spread in the corner, on the lantern or on the vulnerable part of those of the thing that we want to protect, or on the part of the thing that or the person that we want to do what we want to sanctify. So these are the practices in Africa, or in the East, or in other parts of the world, in India, in other parts. They still practices till this very day, because this is their understanding. This is how they see the world. See the spiritual world and the world and the physical world, because they have the understanding that there is a relationship between the physical world and the spiritual world, and to them, for them to keep away the negative energies, to keep away the negative spiritual forces, they do such sacrifice. Or sometimes they say it is what to appease their gods. So it happens in the world. To this particular, or to this very day. Aaron and his sons were chosen for a unique service to both God and the Israelite people, their people. It was a service rooted in God's direct word to Moshe Rabbeinu, and every Israelite knew that. Since God knows that we are wholly human, or a human being, and subject to human fault and shortcoming, how better to remind the new priest of their responsibility than with a hand-on ceremony of dabbling blood on the most vulnerable part of their bodies. The ceremony of putting blood on their earlobe, their thumb, and their big toe was God's way of saying, these are your most vulnerable parts. Guide them well if you want to serve me and my people. This is what God is telling them indirectly. God is telling them that this, your part, are the most vulnerable part, and this vulnerable part that we don't even sometimes recognize. This vulnerable part that sometimes we don't even put attention on them. And these are the parts that are the most important in our body. These are the parts that easily lead us into destruction or into life. We have to decide. And because these parts are the parts that can hear, that can touch, or that can take, and that can balance or move. So we need to understand what God is trying to tell Aharon and his son, that if you, Aharon, and your sons want to serve me, that you want to serve the Lord and his people, you want to serve God and the people of Israel, you have to do what? You have to be very, very serious about those vulnerable parts that you don't even think about. Those vulnerable parts that you just neglect, because these parts are the parts that can lead you into corruption. And to serve God, you cannot serve God if you are corrupt. The ears is very vulnerable to corruption. How? How is the ear vulnerable to corruption? Let's hear it now. Whenever an Israelite will come before the priest to offer a sin offering, he will confess his sin. Imagine the power that the priest had. Imagine if he went home to his wife and said, "Oh, my wife, my darling, by the way, dear, do you know? You will never guess who I saw at the altar today." And what he said that he did. The priest was to listen only, so he would do what he would be able to help the Israelite with the sacrifice. He was not there to offer judgment. No, that is not his service. He was not there to atone. No, that is not his service. Neither is he there to advise. That is not his service. Those ones belongs to the department of God. It is God's department. Those ones, his job as a priest, he was just there only to make sure that the sacrifice was done correctly. That is it. That is what he's just there to do. He's just to come and supervise and see that the sacrifice is done as commanded by God. That is it. His job is not there to blame you. His job is not there to condemn you. His job is not there to atone for you. It is God that atones for us. His job is not there to do what? To pronounce judgment upon you. Even though he's listening and he's hearing all the things that you are saying. You see? So, because it is the our ear can lead us into corruption. What is the Torah saying? The Torah is saying about total confidentiality. The priest must have a total confidentiality. That when the king comes, when the princes come, when a high place person come and buy, or any other person, it doesn't matter, any other Israelite come, man or women alike, if they come to offer a sacrifice and they confess their sin, your job is to keep that as a total confidentiality. You cannot go outside and be babbling them, right? And be saying, oh, you know, you came the other day, you commit this sin. Oh, I can point my finger to what you did last week or yesterday. No, it is not the job of the Kohen or the Kohani to do that. Their job is to keep total confidentiality. You see, it is extremely very, very important in the service of God. Total secrecy. So even though in our world today, for those that work in the hospitals, doctors, nurses, assistant, nuns, you know, we can see that they keep total confidentiality. You cannot come and start pronouncing the sickness or the diagnosis of your patient and start spreading it to the whole world. No, it is privacy. You have to keep that as privacy. And this is the same thing that is happening here. Remember that the Kohen Gadol is like a doctor too, a spiritual doctor, and even a physical one. Because the Torah gives us the understanding that the Kohen Gadol can look at diseases in the human body and prevent them. Right? And also is also a spiritual doctor, you know, trying to lead us and guide us in the right path and in the right way. So as a Kohen Gadol, as a Kohanim, as priest, you know, as rabbis, we have to keep total secrecy. So this is exactly what our ears, you know, can do. That we have to be able to hear things from the members and keep it in our mind. You know, I have a place, a department in our heart, and keep them down there. No second ears or third ear or fourth ear or fifth ear can hear that. It is total secrecy. And we can see that this is also copied by other religions. You know, that they will go to their father's house or to their reverend fathers and do what? And they will be confessing their sin. This is where they took it from. And as it is said that, as you know, the people say in the word that what you did in Vegas remain in Vegas, and exactly is saying that what it is said at the altar stayed at the altar. You know, so what is said at the altar cannot be taken from the altar and spread all over the world or into the community or into the village or town. No, what it is said at the altar remain at the altar. The priest's tomb was daubed with blood too. Why? What is the purpose? Why the tomb? What is the purpose of this? Maybe because the human hand is the only one in nature that we know of that accepts bribe. How tempting it will be for a man in such power as the priest to accept a little protexia from a wealthy patron. Priests were the politicians of the day, and their influence must have been very, very enormous. Dabbling the sacrificial blood on the tongue provided a powerful way of remembering that what the priest was in his hand was not a favor or a bribe, but only the sacrifice of the men and the women who appear before them. Remember that this tongue, our tongue, is to do what? Is to grab. It is to grab, to take. So the Torah is telling us, is giving us this understanding that the sacrifice that you are about to receive, it is not a favor, neither a bribe. It is not a bribe. You know, because our hand is swift in taking bribe. And it's like, for example, you come, oh, you know, you are the what? You are the judge, you know, the Supreme Court judge, and or the judge of the High Court, or the judge of the Court of Appeal, right? Now, your friend that you play golf together or play tennis together, commit a crime, and he comes to your house in the evening, packed with dollars, you know, that come and say, okay, my friend, I know that you are going to do what? Judge my case tomorrow. I'm giving you $10 million cash, or I'm transferring this cash into your bank account in Swiss bank. You know, please make sure that I'm not condemned. You take the money, put in your pocket, and tomorrow you say that the righteous man is guilty, and the guilty one you said is free. See, this is what God is saying. that we cannot pervert judgment. It is you cannot take that as a what? As a favor. No, it is not a favor. You are doing exactly what God has commanded you to do. You are accepting it from their hands, being men or women, as a sacrifice to the Lord. As a what? As a sacrifice for the forgiveness of their sin, or maybe it's a free will offering. But we have to realize that and understand that this is not a favor or a bribe. And the third one and the final one, which is the toe, the big toe. What is it about the toe? I think the toe are the most neglected part of the human body, which is true. They are the most neglected part of our body. We don't even think about them. We don't even remember them. We don't even, sometimes we only give them a little care, and the care only comes when we got injured by a toe. Right? So we pay no attention to them until something step or until somebody step on them, or we stab them on something. Then we are very aware of them. And when those nasty things happen, what happened to us? We begin to curse, right? We begin to pronounce negative words because it's very painful. Because right there is nerves ending, and the nerve will travel to our brain and require severe pain, right? So what happened after that? We begin to limp, right? We begin to limp because it's very painful. We can barely move at that time. In fact, the toe is not for us to walk. It is for what? It is for balancing. It is for us to balance. And therein lies the reason for dabbling blood on the what? On the big toe. This is why, because as a man of God, as a priest, as a rabbi, we have to stand erect before the Lord our God. And what is the meaning of the word to stand erect before the Lord your God? That is mean you have to stand without what? Without no sin. You have to be covered by the righteousness of God, not your own righteousness. Because most of the time we want to cover ourselves with our own righteousness, and the Torah says we have no righteousness in us. It is the righteousness of God that covers us. It's just like what the Torah said. The Torah said that the Lord is the commander of the army, right? And as a military person, when your commander comes and says, stand up, right? What do? We stand erect. Why are you standing erect? Because you are standing before your commander. And since God is our commander and we are his soldier, we have to stand erect before the Lord our God, before the God who is the commander of the host of army, right? So this is what I am saying here, that the standing erect is giving us the understanding of to stand in righteousness. Standing in righteousness, and not to do what? Not to have our back leaping, because when someone look down, that means that the person is guilty of something, or has done something wrong. If you come home as a parent and your son or your daughter does not run to welcome you and they run to go and hide, you know instantly that they did something wrong, or they broke something in the house. So this is exactly what I am saying, that the toe, because most of us will run boom to commit iniquity. Most of us will run boom to commit crime. And so therefore it is your leg, your balancing, that takes you to commit crime. And God said we have to take care of that. Don't run swiftly to commit evil. Do not. So we have to be balanced and stand erect before the Lord our God. We have to stand in righteousness, in holiness before the Lord our God. The priest had at all times to hold his identity in balance. Exactly. You have to hold your identity in balance. He was after all the center of the community and chosen by God. His job was rigged for accusation of corruption at worst and hubris at the best. You see, people can accuse the rabbis. People can accuse the priests of all kinds of corruption, and that is why the Torah says you have to do what? We have to check our identity. We have to keep our identity in balance, and our actions what we do, we have as a community leader, as the president of a nation, as the prime minister of a nation, as the mayor of a city, you have to always put that in your mind, in your soul, keeping your identity in balance, in check, so that no one can come and do what? And accuse you and say, oh, you took something wrongfully from me. And we can also see that in the book of Deuteronomy, at the time when Moshe Rabbeinu was about to depart, he said that, have I taken anything wrongfully from any man? Let them come, let them speak up. Also in the time of Yehoshua also said the same thing. Have I taken anything wrongfully? I will return it back, I will make compensation. Come up, speak up. So because as a leader, people can accuse you easily. They can say, okay, you took something from me wrongfully or something like that. So as a leader, we have to always keep our identity, our action in what? In check. However, understood himself and his position. As a leader, we have to understand our position in the community. And this position sometimes can give rise in future generation to both the most glorious chapter in our history and some of its most embarrassing moments. What is true of those ancient priests is also true of us today as well. God said to the Israelites, to his people, you are kingdom of priests, a holy people. Every Israelite, whether descended from the priest or a brand new member of the community or of the people, is a holy person and part of the kingdom. Though we do not dab our yellow thumb and big toe as part of our apotropaic right, his lesson must never evade us. Even though if today we do not put blood in our right ear, in our right thumb, or the big toe of our right feet, right? Even though we don't do that now, but the lesson that God is teaching us in the Torah must not evade us. We have to understand and keep this lesson in our heart, and we have to act upon them, not just keeping them, not just hearing them, but acting upon them. Because who is a person that God loves? Who is a person that fears God? The man that fears God is a man that listens to the Torah, that hears the Torah and do the Torah. If a man that fears God is a man that reads the Torah, listens to the Torah and do the Torah. That is a man that fears God. Not that man that reads the Torah and go and do another thing. Not that man that listens to the Torah but go outside in 2 seconds to commit evil. No, but the man that hear and do the word, that is the man that fear God, and that is the man of God. So this is what I'm giving us the understanding today, that this lesson is a very real lesson in our world of today, because we can understand in the world that we live of how corruption is rampant in our community. How the righteous man is condemned to death and the evil man is free because he's your friend. How the poor man is being blamed for every situation in the world. How the homeless are suffering, and we have a lot of things. We have a lot of wealth, and the wealth is being controlled by some 0.5% of the population, and the whole population are hungry and thirsty. We have also those people who are the motherless and the fatherless, that they would not even care about them. In a country that we say is full of wealth, the people suffer. Where is the understanding here? So this is what the Torah is teaching us, that as it happened 4,000 years ago, the same thing is even getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So therefore, please, Torah is encouraging us. Torah is telling us, man, wash your part. Man, hear what is true. And man, do not take bribe. Because our country, that is a country of blessing. The country that we live in, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, the percentage of the middle class is very high compared to what we are seeing now. The middle class is nearly eradicated, and all the rich man become richer and the poor become more poorer. It's not right. So what we are saying is that we as a man should return back to our Creator. Greed is the norm of the day. You know, greed is the norm of the day. Somebody will come and buy a pharmaceutical company. You know, the drug that is being produced for 2 cents is going to change it and say it become for a tablet or for a dose is 7,000. He doesn't care. He said this is capitalism. That is no longer a capitalism. That is greed, and that is extremism to the extreme. So we have to always consider and think about our brothers. Even though if you say I don't know them, we have to realize that we are all descendants of Adam and Eva. And so therefore we are in one way or the other related. So therefore my people are encouraging us and those who are watching online that not only of reading or listening to the Torah but doing the work of the Torah. We are all Jews. We the Jews. The Torah called us what? The Torah called us Nifha, which means the chosen people. We are the chosen people of God that God has called, right? That we should be the light bearer. And as a light bearer, there is a responsibility. And God is teaching Aaron and his son the responsibility of the Mishkan, what they have to take, what they have to do, their work in the Mishkan. So therefore, we as an Israelite, the Israelites, the sons of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, with the descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, with the DNA of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we have a responsibility. And that responsibility is to spread the Torah to the ends of the world. That that we have to take the light and spread that light to the ends of the world, that God in His mercy and God in His love has chosen us. Not to be proud, no. Not to make ourselves Lord over the others, no. Not to be pompous or be proud, no. But for us as an Israelite to shine the light of salvation to the ends of the world. That the Lord God, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. That we should bring all the human race back to the Garden of Eden. The Torah called us Nefha, the chosen people. But like the priest, this hardly means better. It means only that we the Jews have responsibility that far outweigh any privilege that comes with the title. Exactly. Our responsibility is far more overweight than all the privilege that come with that particular title, being the chosen people of God. We do not use the name to lord over others. No. We do not use the name to lord over others. No. That is not our job. Our job is to bring people to the kingdom of God. Or to set ourselves somehow better than the others. No. Even though the Torah said that we are the least people of the earth, the lowest of the lowest, the weakest of the weakest. So why must us, or why must we as Israelites, why must we as Jews come to want to lord ourselves over the others, or to want to make ourselves that we are better than you know? All of us have the same blood, and this blood is from Adam and Eva. Our job, as I said, is to give us to do the task of the Torah, to be the light bearer, right? To bear the light of faithfulness, of righteousness, of the light of salvation to the ends of the world. Our task is to live Torah and to sanctify all that we do. That is it. As Hillel summoned it up over 2,000 years ago, when he was asked to recite the whole Torah while standing on one foot. He said, all that is hated to you, do not do to your what? To your neighbor. All the rest is commentary. Go and learn it. Exactly. As Yeshua also said, love your neighbor as yourself. That is what Hillel is saying. Say all the things that is hateful to you, all the things that you do not like, all the things that you cannot do to yourself, don't do it to your neighbor. Simple. It's not hard. The old Torah, that is what all the Torah is talking about. It is not hard. The Torah is not hard. The Torah is simple. Right? It is man that make it hard. It is man that put all kinds of load, all kinds of jargons, all kinds of rubbish, and make the Torah cumbersome. Make the Torah so hard, so heavy for people to carry. The God our Lord made the Torah simple for us to be able to carry it. The Torah is not hard. Do not do evil to your neighbor. What you cannot take for yourself, do not do it to your brother, do not do it to your sister, do not do it to your nephew, do not do it to your to your friend, do not do it to that person, to your acquaintance, do not do it. And it's simple. If each and every one of us can understand this simple principle, the world will be a better place for each and every one of us. But we have in the world that we live men who want to lord themselves over others. Nations that want to lord themselves over others. Nations that want to make the whole world in their own image. And that is not right. Because God said that man is created in the image of God. Not man is created in the image of man. So we have to imitate God, not imitating any nation. We have to imitate the Torah, not imitating any kinds of books that you might be reading. But only and only, therefore, as Elef said, all that is hateful to you, do not do it to your neighbor. All the rest is a commentary, nothing in there. Nothing in there. Yeshua said the same thing. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. If you can do that, if we can do that, the world will be a simple place and a better place to live. Parshas Tzav. Keep your vulnerable part from corruption. Let's keep our vulnerable part from corruption, because these are the parts that lead us into corruption. Shabbat Shalom.